On this date, 50 years ago, January 22nd, 1973, the United States Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision in the case of Roe versus Wade, protecting the right to an abortion. The news of that day set off a half-century of perpetual combat between the two sides of the issue, culminating in last year's overturning of Roe. This morning, we are getting an exclusive account of how those justices came to their landmark decision from people who were in the room. NBC's Antonia Hylton has our Sunday Spotlight.
The Supreme Court has handed down an important and controversial decision on abortion.
Roe v. Wade was a decision that rocked the nation.
What about the women?
Setting into motion political divides that would span decades. In the months leading up to the landmark ruling, only a handful of people knew what was happening behind the walls of the famously private Supreme Court. Jim Ziegler and John Rich were two of them.
It was just an incredible experience, and it was so surreal.
The two men clerked under Justice Harry Blackmun as Blackmun prepared and penned Roe's majority opinion.
How do you remember Justice Blackmun feeling?
Justice Blackmun always felt the weight of his opinions.
He did not take things lightly.
Did you realize then how important Roe would become?
I would be less than honest if I said that I understood exactly how important it would become.
Also assisting Blackmun, former clerk George Frampton.
We knew these were important legal precedents that would have important long-term ramifications, but not that 50 years later we'd still be in a huge political and social scrap over these issues.
On the dissenting side of Roe, Justice Byron White, Reese Barksdale and Richard Hoffman clerked for him. Hoffman says the arguments he had in chambers with White leading up to the Roe decision grew heated as White worked to determine whether it was the court's place to legalize abortion or the state's.
I actually had a final meeting with him right as he was deciding. We were screaming at each other because of our disagreement on it, but he encouraged that.
To help blow off steam, Justice White, a former professional football player, invited his clerks to regularly play basketball with him.
Richard and I would play Justice White in what was called the highest court in the land because it was the basketball court above the Supreme Court courtroom.
In the end, the vote for Roe was 7-2, with Justice White writing the dissent. Almost immediately, letters, even death threats poured in. For Justice Blackmun, the hate mail took a toll.
Bags of mail would come in.
Bags of mail.
Bags of
Justice
mail would
Blackmun.
come into the court.
Justice, at least at the outset, insisted on reading every one of them. He was beaten up. And we finally, the clerk said to Mr. Justice, you've got to stop this, reading this stuff.
The former clerks we spoke with admit there's a certain irony that a momentous decision for women was made by an all-male court with the assistance of an overwhelmingly male staff.
A single female clerk, our term, that struck us as archaic.
Hands up! Hands up!
Last year, Roe was overturned by the Dobbs decision. And now, a half-century after Roe, the clerks remain struck by the far-reaching impact the decision had.
I never dreamed that 50 years later, Roe would still be so controversial. And I didn't realize abortion was going to become the thing that turned American politics into single-issue politics.
For Sunday Today, Antonia Hylton, Washington, D.C.
Antonia, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.